And of course, our players are Liquid.Ret and Kawaii.LighT. And Andre, like you said, these guys have a bit of a storied past. They've been around the competitive StarCraft scene for as long as there has been a competitive StarCraft scene. Brood War players, Ret, a bit of a legend. Kawaii.Rice was a really strong player in Brood War, but maybe not as storied as somebody like Yos.
Yeah, both these players obviously have a StarCraft Brood War background. I think what's really important to note is throughout the history, Ret has always been like the god of either StarCraft Brood War or even StarCraft 2. And I know Kawaii.Rice has personally looked up to the guy. I mean, he respects Ret a lot. And this is really a kind of a sense of you've worked up to kind of admiring your hero for so long, and then all of a sudden you're playing against him, and a pretty big stage. So I think that's really important to note that Kawaii.Rice, although he respects his opponent a lot, he might be playing a little bit more passive than Ret, which is crazy since Ret is the passive of passive players.
Gotta say, hats off to Kawaii for being this far. If I'm not mistaken, he is our first North American in this, I guess, this version of the TL Opens, the TSL4 qualifier.
Select,
to make it
if you want to consider him select, like he's half, you know.
When did Select play in the TL Open semifinal? Did I miss that one?
I think number 4.
Okay. Well, fine then. Kawaii definitely doing something.
I had to call you out, Bitter. I'm sorry, bro.
Definitely doing something that's been hard to do for North Americans specifically. He's made it into the semifinal. Guarantees himself a pretty good number of points, and if he advances past Ret, more points and a chance at qualifying directly. Ret, one of the best Zerg players that there is outside of Korea, and honestly, it would be a very good Zerg inside of Korea as well. He's man, Ret's accolades. It's a long list, man. And you know what? Rather than listing them, let's just take note of Kawai's build: Proxy 2 racks.
I love the positioning. It is against the normal metagame, which is exactly the Overlord pathing. It's normally to build it up on that ramp. The Overlords look like they're just going to barely miss, and Ret might be in such huge trouble. Now, I do want to mention real quick that I think Kawaii.Rice does consider Ret a better player, and I think that's why Kawaii.Rice is resorting to this type of play. Not only that, I'm pretty sure that most Terrans these days are frustrated with this matchup. It is a very hard matchup for them right now, and I think that's why we have these very aggressive builds right off the bat.
I love the initial bunker placement from Kawaii, just protecting these initial Marines, and when that bunker completes, the Marines will be able to ferry themselves over into that second building bunker. Ret's going to immediately run past with some Zerglings to try to pick off reinforcements. That's a great decision. A couple of Marines going to do some damage to the building spine crawlers, but Ret's doing exactly what I think he should be doing. He's overreacting. He's pulling a lot of drones. He's building a lot of spine crawlers. And Andre, you have to overreact in a situation like this, because if you underreact, you're dead.
Absolutely, and you need at least 3 spine crawlers. This is the perfect way to defend against this incoming push. And now there is a bunker in the hatchery range, but what you're going to do now is just get 3 spine crawlers in great positioning. They're going to snake around probably 2 to the left-hand side, 1 to the right-hand side, and just take down that bunker. And once your hatchery gets around probably 400 hit points, you want to actually pull stuff. Make sure that bunker dies, and then you're in a great position.
Oh man, in his natural, Ret taking some heavy damage, might lose a single spine here, but in the midst of this, his Zerglings are preventing additional Marine reinforcements from being rallied over. Kawaii doing some smart stuff with his barracks rally points is going to manage finally to clean up these countering Zerglings. Bunkers are still alive and doing good damage. Hatchery's down below half health. Ret's going to have to commit to this soon. He's got a lot of Zerglings, 16 more about to pop out. Queens and Spines are working on these bunkers, but the SCV's doing a great job of repairing.
Exactly. He'll be able to clean this up most likely. Transfuse goes off on the hatchery, just keep it a little bit longer. Here's the big pull. He's going to target down the SCVs with the Queens. Very intelligent decision by Ret. And now the Marines get cleaned up very easily. But, you know, Bitter, at the end of the day, damage has already been done. And all this indirect damage that we see, all the Zerglings being pumped out, this is hurting him so incredibly much. And Ret is going to be behind. Look at this follow-up. My God.
Yeah, double command center follow-up, more racks going down. So Kawaii is going to be playing a very, very biocentric build here through the mid-game. He's floating those initial 2 racks. He's going to be on 6 barracks, Andre. Ret right now droning like a madman. He knows that if he's going to be ahead, he's got to make the most of this timing he has, this little window where he can drone pretty freely. Kawhi's going to be forced to pull a lot of SCVs and repair. He's got no Marines behind this wall. Very scary times. Until these barracks complete, Kawhi is going to have nothing that can deal with these Zerglings, and Ret can just sit here and pound away until a couple of Marines pop out. The 2 proxied barracks are just now landing. It's the Marines being produced, but Kawhi's going to lose a lot of mining time here, and that's that's important. It's important that Ret's able to do something to slow down the initial economy of Kawaii.Rice.
Yeah, and not only that, you're just keeping tabs on your opponent, seeing how many units they're able to pump out. Look at this Overlord Scout. I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal the way Ret is playing. He knows exactly how his opponent is, kind of progressing through the game. Normally there's 2 major progressions, which is a tech route where you get very fast Hellions, or this mass barracks. And if you know exactly what your opponent is doing, especially this barracks opening, you can actually just take a 3rd base, rely on Zergling Banelings to actually keep you safe throughout the game, knowing that drop potentials aren't really there. So get your creep out, get a lot of Zerglings, get your Banelings out so they really can't bunch up into a ball and micro your Zerglings, and you will be able to get the economic advantage against your opponent.
Kawhi is researching STEM, which could hint at another timing in the near future. Although, I guess pushing without combat shields would be a really, really big risk. What do you think he's going to do here, Andre? He's got the triple orbital at this point. His economy is going to be pretty solid. Ret has just now planted his 3rd hatchery, or I should say is just now preparing to plant his 3rd hatchery. And, I mean, I don't know that Kawhi can do a whole lot to really pressure Ret in the immediate future.
No, it's really difficult for Kawaii.Rice to actually progress on through this. He is behind, let's not make any mistake about that. He's behind in that he just doesn't have the ability to develop. And not only that, his hand is shown, whereas Kawaii.Rice is completely in the dark of Ret. He has no indication if it's Infestor, Spire, if it's something like just double evolution, if it's roaches, and all of those require a very different response, right? We don't want to be going mass Marines and Marauders against just straight up Infestors. We want to incorporate Medivacs into there. Well, that's still a very far away from where Kawaii.Rice currently is. So Kawaii.Rice, he needs to make something happen. He needs to do something that actually gets him ahead or allows him to come back. He can't just stay on what he's doing right now.
Yeah, I agree with you, Andre, and one of the most critical things that Kawhi has done is he's delayed his factory tech so much. He's just now completing that 1st factory, and I don't think he's in any sort of hurry to get siege tanks out. We can see Ret already has the Baneling Nest. He's getting his lair, so there's a big portion of mid-game where Ret could choose to be aggressive with Zergling Baneling, and he'd probably be pretty successful if he did so.
Yeah, but, that Ret has started to mix it in. If we talked about him maybe a year ago, I would say no, that's impossible because we're talking about Ret. But he's really changed it up, and I like that about him. Just adapting to the StarCraft 2 style, not so much Brood War anymore. Kawaii.Rice, I think he should try to start taking in assumptions. I know his style of play, and he always says, what's theoretically correct? Like what am I supposed to do in these positions? And when you're this far behind, I really feel like he has to start taking a lot more risks. So assume your opponent is going to be a little bit more aggressive. Well, let's put my units into a position where they can, really, really take advantage of my opponent's, maybe Zergling Banelings out of position. So stuff them over at the 4th base. Something like that, and just say, okay, I can punish my opponent's 3rd base and try to get an advantage, or come back into the game via that route. But I think if he just continues to macro on, we've seen this so many times. Actually, Ret versus Select on this very map showed where Select was so far behind, and Ret would never let up. He just knew how to play out the game to perfection, so he'd win 100% of the time.
And Ret is just kind of going through the motions right now. He's adding in a lot of Zerglings. He's shooting creep pretty well, although Kawhi stimming forward and picking off some of those tumors and threatening to kill that queen. Picking off like all the spreading creep. Here come the Zerglings. They're going to be able to catch all these Marines out of position. That's a pretty painful loss, and one that Kawhi can't really afford at this stage of the game. Kawhi is getting into his initial siege tank production. Hasn't started siege mode yet. And Ret 12 mutas on the way. It's so cool seeing that Mutiling Bane is kind of coming back into fashion in light of all the metagame shifts that have been so heavily favored around the Medivacs and Hellions and Marines.
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting because right now the current metagame, as you said, is Marine Marauder medevac. You know, that's pretty strong, and you just get this alarming amount of medevac counts so that roaches and infestors do nothing, basically. You're able to just tank the damage, and you're good, and rely on really, really great micro. But, you know, all of a sudden, this medevac transition that normally people go into is like the worst possible thing because it tries to get mobility, and all of a sudden, Ret claims mobility with these mutas. So it's a really, really intelligent transition, I think. And Ret's gonna get dividends.
Oh, Kawaii not even remotely prepared for this. There's no units in his main base, only a single turret. It's gonna fall immediately. Right away, there are some SCV losses. There's not. No, the Marines do have combat shields, excuse me. But still, these mutas able to trade very, very effectively against these Marines because the numbers are just too high. And Ret he's got free reign over Kawai's main base right now.
The drop in the third base will be cleaned up very easily by Ret. I mean, seriously, Ret is cleaning up everything so easily. It makes this matchup almost look so silly and trivial. It just feels like Kawaii can't do a thing. And that's kind of deceiving because it really came down to the openings, and Ret being able to deal with that initial push so easily, you know, gave Kawaii such a big advantage. Or, excuse me, opposite, sorry.
I love how smoothly Ret is transitioning. Infestation Pit goes down right away. He's upgrading his Zerglings, getting +2 melee, +2 carapace. That's so important. Zergling Baneling Muta of old did not really focus on upgrades for your ground army, and it's important that you do that as Ret is going to come rolling in once more. Zerglings, Banelings, and Mutas all attacking at the same time. There is no siege mode, just now starting in fact, and Kawaii knows that there is no way that he can mount